Is on. So awesome stuff happening out there, Duke.
Yeah, it looks good. We all the action we missed earlier. We missed the 2 women's heats, and as expected, the waves were absolutely pumping. As soon as the women got in the water, the set started coming in, did not stop, and Candace Appleby just went to town on Steamer Lane. I don't know if any woman has ever surfed a lane like Candace did during that heat. It was pretty amazing. So the hits just keep on coming. Now we're a couple of heats into the men's division, and the waves just keep coming.
That's right. So the surf is much better than yesterday, so it definitely came up. It is Steamer Lane delivering some great surf. So why don't you break down the spot here for us?
Well, Steamer Lane is a point break, and there's several sections of the lane. There's the very outside closest to the cliff, and that's where a lot of the contests are held, and that's called the point. And you just sit just outside the point. There's seal rock that's out there with all the seals sit up on there in sun, and that's typically the best wave. And then as you come inside the point, there's an area called the slot. And the danger of the slot right now, low tide is about right now. And there's an area of the slot called Table Rock, and you do not want to end up on Table Rock, and it gets really tricky. And that's the thing that the guys on the ASP World Tour had some difficulty with, and anybody who doesn't surf the lane regularly, every time, with every foot increment of tide change, it changes dramatically. So Table Rock's underwater one moment, it's a boil, and the next thing it's coming up and exposing itself. So it gets pretty tricky. And then as you move over, as the tide gets lower, middle peak will start to break, and then we see that happening now. And so really the athletes that are in the water, they need to make a decision whether they sit out at the point, as we see Green taking off on a wave at the point right now. Really nice wave, and that wave can line up all the way across to the inside. Nice little wave.
Cheer for him, Santa Cruz. Let's hear it. Take your left hand and reach your right hand.
There we go.
Little cut back. You can see this thing's going to line up a little bit, so he'll get 1 or 2 more turns in here, most likely. Nice little cutty.
And like you said, sometimes you got to make a decision because some of these waves will not connect through, whereas some of the waves down here on the inside will go all the way through.
They'll run all the way through. I mean, a lot of times guys will sit at Table Rock. They'll sit right next to it or right on top of it. Take a little wave, a little waist-high, shoulder-weight wave in there, and it will run all the way across the reef. Super steep. It'll barrel. So it's really a great performance wave, but then you're rolling the dice because you get caught inside by the sets, or it doesn't end up lining up. And then middle peak over here, great drop, and then it really kind of backs off, and you really got to kind of stay in the white water and hope that the thing lines up on the inside, as we see John Griffith do a little cutback underneath the lip right there. And John knows this wave really well. He surfs the lane a lot. He's going to throw a patented JG wraparound right there. We've all seen that.
Oh, there we go.
So John he's indicative really of the style of surfer that you find in Santa Cruz. Real smooth, and lots of roundhouse cutbacks. And Green here with a nice little cutty. So the nice thing is, once these guys get a good long ride, now they don't. It's not as dicey. You don't have to roll the dice as much because they can just go ahead and make their way out to the point. But if they see a set start coming in at middle peak, then they'll just paddle straight out and catch a quick wave at middle peak. What I think we're going to see when we see some of the goofy footers out there, Dave Bainey and Anthony Vela, those guys are looking for middle peak because they want to go left. And that left runs pretty fast. It stands up. It has a little barrel on it. Not a long wave, but it's a great performance wave.
Yeah, I know yesterday I paddled from the Surftech team house all the way to Cowes. And as I went around the point, I did catch a few waves, but then I came across tabletops, and there's a huge suck-out area there. Yeah. I was not wearing a leash, and I said, well, I got to be careful here. So the guys are definitely having to make a call here between tabletops and a middle point. So there you go. You just got a little bit of the breakdown on the wave here. Who do we have in the water?
That's a good question. And if I had the sheet in front of me, I would tell you that. I know John Griffith's out there. Beyond that, I'm not entirely sure. I think maybe Haley Fisk is one of our guys out there, but we're waiting to get our sheet in here. So hopefully we get that shortly and let everybody know who's out there. That's
right, and you can interact with us online. You can also tweet us with the hashtag SurftechSO13, SurftechSO for Shootout 13. If you have any questions, thoughts, or anything, you can just shoot it our way. Also, we might be doing some fun game here with like some fantasy surfing results. So we'll see. We want you to make the call. So we're going to be making some calls here to see who advances and who does not. because we do not know.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. So we're partnering with the Santa Cruz Paddle Festival. And the situation here in Santa Cruz is they allow for 4 permits for steamer lane throughout the year. Coldwater Classic gets one. There's a Memorial Day Surf Contest that gets one. And the Santa Cruz Kayak Festival gets one. And these guys have been gracious enough to let us participate in the event. JG goes down right there. So the way they do things is a little different than we do them in the surf world. We tend to tabulate our heats and then go ahead and advance everybody. They do it a little differently. Their scoring's a little bit different, and they kind of hold the cards close to their chest, and we really won't know actual results until later tonight and first thing tomorrow morning. So that's why we've got the fantasy surf results coming up.
That's right. That's right. So I wouldn't say. I mean, you probably don't want to go left on Middle Point, right?
You definitely want to go left at Middle Peak.
Middle Peak. I'm sorry.
It
Middle
is fun.
Peak,
The way I'm a goofy footer, and I live for that left. And as you can see, is that Dave Bainey there? That left is incredibly fun. It's an explosive wave. Okay, you're not going to do a lot of cutbacks on the left at Middle Peak. It's explosive. You use that speed.
You're going forward.
You go straight up into the lip, and what a lot of these guys are going to look for is this whitewater coming across from the slot, and they're going to want to bang that whitewater on the end and really throw an exclamation mark on their ride.
That brings us to the judging criteria. Are we judging longest, or are we judging most radical, or both?
Well, it's a combination, and the judges that these guys have here, they're very experienced. They do a lot of longboard surfing contests, and then they obviously do the kayak events as well, and so they combine it all. You want to see not just degree of difficulty of maneuvers, but you also want to see a variety of maneuvers. And you know, there's a little bit of debate going on in the water right now, and I think it's just indicative of where stand-up paddling is in the surf world, that some guys don't really feel that the longboard side of things, you know, a nose ride or whatever, should be scored very highly. But these judges do score nose rides, and they really score well. If you do a nose ride, link it into a roundhouse cutback, and then go into an off the lip, you're going to get a high score. Bigger waves are going to get you a good score, and then length of ride will also help your score out as well.
Another thing that's important to mention is that this surf contest is tied to the race that we just had earlier today. So the points of the race will also be combined with the points of the surf contest, and whoever comes on top is the winner of the overall event, correct?
They are the winner of the overall event. We're calling it the Lone Ranger Award.
The Lone Ranger. I mean, now you got to tell me about the behind the scene here. What was the thinking? Lone Ranger. What's the story?
Well,
that has to have a story.
Well, we initially, before we were able to bring the women in and have a separate event for the women, you know, essentially it was most likely going to be a guy that was going to win the thing, and we were going to give the award to one guy. Then we got the women's division, so it changed things up a little bit. But
the Lone Duo or something like that.
Ranger. Well,
the Loner Duo.
We'll probably come up with something better. Viewers, if you've got some ideas, send them our way. We'd love to hear them. We're starting to run out of creative juices over here. It's been a long weekend, but
it's been a long weekend. It's been a long day for us, but yes, you can interact and you can tell us what you think. So tweet us at Surftech SO13, and we also want to thank not just Surftech, which has done an incredible job. I mean, Duke, who's next to me here, probably hasn't slept, I don't know, in the past 2 months or so. But here we are, ground zero, and the action is on. So thanks to Surftech and all our other sponsors as well.
Yeah, we couldn't do it without the help of the sponsors. Sup the Mag, Cove Water, Paddle Surf, the local surf shop here, stand-up paddle shop here. Those guys are amazing. A lot of help from companies like Oakley. It's great to see Oakley. Dave Bainey with a nice rebound right there. Great to see Oakley, you know, starting to reach out into the stand-up paddle world as well, and recognizing that this sport is exciting, it's fun, and it ties in real well with what those guys are doing. And then, yeah, we've got Ocean Minded out here, and those guys are great. They've had their whole program set up all day today and yesterday, and making hats for everybody and giving out sandals. So it's been really good having all the sponsors supporting this event. That's how we keep doing it.
Yeah, and another thing that's great too is like how many people came together from different backgrounds to make it happen. We've had several publications involved, all of them embedding the live feed on their own website. So we want to give a shout out to them as well. People coming across the aisle for a greater cause, and that is stand-up paddleboarding. So we want to thank all of them who participated. My wife also made a lot of the covers. we were kind of like expecting some rough weather, so she did some sewing, and we got some covers for the computers and all the gear. So a lot of people doing a lot of things to make it happen. Also, we got the brothers Eric Cox and Corey Cox helping out behind the scene. A lot of the athletes also. Sean, cannot fail to mention Sean helping with the camera. So, well, it looks like we got some. That's a fun session right now. I wish I could be joining them.
I'd love to see you out there. In fact, I don't know what you're doing sitting next to me.
I know.
You would be making it through some rounds. I've seen you surf.
I'm sacrificing myself for a greater cause. What about that?
So
that more people can share in this stoke. What about that?
Share the love. Look at this. Oh, we can't see it on camera, but Middle Peak has just dumped a nice little A-frame left and right. Pretty beautiful. And we see the point right now. These guys are about to get clipped by this wave. One goes down, one gets
whoa, what
murdered.
Is that? Oh my goodness.
And but yeah, so this is pretty typical. You see it's pretty consistent head high waves at the point, and if we can see some of these guys get a couple of those things, there'll be some high scores coming up. As we see Green here dropping in on a nice, this thing's gonna run a little bit. This wave's gonna line up nicely. Hopefully he can stay ahead of it. I mean, this thing was barreling earlier. This section was throwing a little barrel. He tries to exit that one, but I wouldn't be surprised. And AV and Dave Bainey and Becker were calling it earlier. Becker's going to be tube hunting. He's looking for the barrel.
That's a nice set on the outside. It is swinging wide, so Middle Peak is going off right now. That could be an excellent ride. It's not as fast as the left, but that's a long ride, allowing for a lot of maneuvers. Off the top, roundhouses, everything you can imagine, maybe even some helicopters, and he keeps going. I'm sure this thing might go all the way close to Cowles or so.
It will, but like I said, Andre, if the smart guys are going to probably stay away from Middle Peak. It just doesn't offer a lot in high performance. Right. You can get nose rides and you can do cutbacks all day long on that wave. And when it gets around the corner and gets out of the judge's view is when it turns into indicators and actually almost becomes a mini rincon. But the big scores are going to come at the point and at the slot for sure. And these guys know it. They've been watching it now. They're watching the women, and they saw there was a couple spitting barrels that came through inside the slot. So my assumption is these guys are going to catch some waves at the point, and when they're paddling back out, if they can luck into one at Middle Peak, they'll take it. But I don't think too many guys are going to sit on Middle Peak, at least not right now.
Yeah, so they're making the right call. They're all the way on the outside there, trying to get deep in the pocket with a lot of speed and a lot of action, a lot of face for them to go up and down the face, but that was not one of them.
He did something with his face, but it wasn't on the face of the wave.
Okay, we got a Dave Bainey instant replay here. We're going to bring it up for you. So an instant replay brought to you by Oakley. Check it out. There we have Dave Bainey on his backhand. He goes with like a paddle switch. Slow-mo there in the pocket. That's tough because it's a small wave. You don't have a lot of room there. He needs to recover. There he goes, trying to catch some speed. Now, the wave is going to have an interesting section there where he's going to try to go for another off the lip on his backhand. Lining up, getting some speed, trying to pump a little bit, trying to get more speed. Now, what you don't see is that on the left side of the screen, there is a wave that's about to jack up. And there he goes, speed, 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 off the lip. And that is Dave Bainey trying to milk every second out of that wave. So, replay brought to you by Oakley at the Surftech Shootout. And we are here in Santa Cruz, California. And Duke has some updates here. We're looking at the heat sheets.
We finally got our hands on the heat sheet. That always helps. Yeah, so in this heat, we are looking at, in black, Griffin Ross. No, we're not. We're looking at, in black, Drew Brophy. Drew Brophy, do you know who that is?
Yes, he's an incredible artist. In fact, if you want to look at like surf paintings and real paintings, I mean, on canvas and on all kinds of surfaces, surfboards, a lot of surfboards, especially in Southern California. Very colorful paintings, very vibrant. You want to check out Drew Brophy.
Yeah, I think his web address is drewbrophy.com, and the guy is amazing. And I had no idea. I didn't even know he was a stand-up paddler. And now when I found out that he's registered for the event, I went online, and the dude charges.
No, he does. And I think it was last year or the year before, he was doing a major painting live at the Battle of the Paddle down in Dana Point,
That's
California.
Right.
And I had never seen him surf, but I had seen, oh, look at that, off the lip.
Nice
and
section.
whoa.
He didn't make the most out of that section, but that's what those guys are looking for.
So that was green. That was Brad
Prancevic. Brad Prancevic. And in blue, we've got Steve Drotter. He's a local Yoko. He's over on the east side. And then in pink, we're looking at Eric Williams. So that's who we've got out there. And looks like on the outside, that is blue, Steve Drotter. Is that blue? That looks like Steve. Yep.
That looks like
so
blue.
Steve, he surfs at Pleasure Point. That's just on the east side of Santa Cruz. I live on the west side. We don't go over there too much. And that wave over at Pleasure Point is somewhat similar to the lane, not quite as bouncy. So these guys are pretty used to this lined-up point break type surf. So he's definitely got an advantage.
And that's a long ride, Pleasure Point. I've
yeah.
surfed Pleasure Point a few times, and it's a bit slower.
Yeah,
than the lane.
It's just different. It's not the same. I mean, it's a kind of a cross between the ride at Middle Peak and then the point here. But it's a great wave, super fun. Lots of different sections on that wave. And one thing about the lane and Pleasure Point, as we see Drew Brophy, just the man in the right spot. Here we go on a bomb. This thing is going to line up all the way through Middle Peak as he does a nice little cutty right there. See if this thing.
There we go. Let's get some
nice
speed.
section.
Nice size wave right there. Here comes another set green.
Let's see if he can make it around. He does not. And it looks like Green on the outside is looking at a little corner. See if he can get it. He does.
There you go. A nice takeoff. Not much of a shoulder there, so unless that there's a little bit of a reform, I don't think he can get a very high score out of that. There you go.
No, he's just kind of opening his account. He wants to get some scores on the board. But that wave from Brophy in black, that could get him some points. I mean, that wave lined up well, and he did a couple turns on it. If he would have finished that wave a little better, he probably would have got a higher score. But that's what those guys are looking for. You want that one, you take off at the point, and the thing just runs all the way across the reef. So it looks, and they just keep coming.
Yeah, the 3 commandments of judging surfing, right? You want to go deep, you want to go up and down the lip, and you want to have the longest ride. So if you can pull off all of those together, you got some good thing going for you.
For sure. And I mean, with anything, bottom line is, did you maximize what the wave was offering? You don't want to do a bunch of cutbacks on a wave that you really should be doing an off the lip. You don't want to try to do an off the lip on a wave that really calls for a cutback. And I think that's what the judges, really in any contest, are looking for, is how well the surfers maximize what the wave gives them. And on the inside here, we got, looks like pink, Eric Williams here on the inside. I think he's just been trying to find something, so he's just trying to make something out of nothing, a little cutback there on the inside. This thing will start to reform a little bit, but he opts out of it as Middle Peak starts to go off.
And Drew Brophy is, there you go, nice lay back. Another set on the outside. Nobody in position, so for Middle Peak, it looks like everybody has caught a wave. Plenty of waves. I mean, there is definitely no shortage of a swell. You called it. You said there were going to be 3 swells, and we're looking at some very, very good surf.
Yeah, and it's going to change. There's a little southwest swell that's moving through right now, and those are those really good sets that we see at the point, and they come in about every half an hour. When these waves at Middle Peak are the west-northwest swell, and I mean, really, you couldn't ask for more. The lane's doing its thing today. I mean, Steamer Lane is kind of in the surfing world is known as a bigger wave spot, so you're really used to seeing these big, ominous, triple overhead peaks. It's, cold and ugly. Today it's more fun. It's playful. It's only about head high, a little bit overhead. I mean, Steamer Lane, especially Middle Peak, kind of stands up so it can look pretty big, but it's pretty fun. It's just a fun wave, and I feel like these guys they're kind of getting the hang of it. They've surfed it now for a couple days, and they're doing a great job of being in the right spot to capitalize on some good waves.
Oh yeah, and the wind is howling. We got like a northwest, a west-northwest, which is always howling here, and that's one of the incredible things about Steamer Lane. We are fairly protected, so you would not think, because conditions look very well organized outside, but if you just look a bit